Welcome back, everyone, to Spiritual Context for Worldly Chaos. This is episode 3 of Taylor Ursula's 2023 interview. Enjoy.
I love that. Wow. Yes, absolutely. Just that sort of organic evolution of trusting what is emerging and understanding that as we work with it, as that journey unfolds, we are refining that understanding and that process, which I think really comes through with the King of Cups, who is a literal crystal. It's I have grown to formalize this and hold shape now. I am crystalline. Absolutely. It's really nice to hear my cards through your description.
Oh my gosh, I mean, they definitely give those feelings for sure. And so the swords, so like you said, it's, I think traditionally speaking, swords are about conflict and about anxiety and not even overthinking things, just having something that's constantly on your mind because it's unresolved. Issues that come up that you just can't get away from until they're done. So what would you say going to portals being more of a dream or being more about kind of self-discovery or looking into more of the void? How would you translate swords in that way? How would you look at swords like that?
So in the same vein that we were exploring the wands as being kind of self-actualizing, I feel like the swords journey is one of awakening to our own subconscious, like the subconscious becoming conscious, and the terrifying journey that we go through of self-knowing. And self-knowing is dangerous. It is scary. It's often easier to kind of repeat patterns and to project outward and to sort of remain in that survival place, that place of I can't look at myself. It's not safe. And so I think of the swords as this journey of, oh no, I've been awakened and I can't unsee what I've just seen. And so from here, I have to make choices about how I integrate this part of me. And so I think of it very much as, the self-actualization in terms of what our minds are truly made of, what our kind of nature-nurture relationship is. Really, I think of the swords as kind of separative, right? The way Mars is, that sense of we're constantly walking away from something, we're constantly shutting something down or recognizing something is crumbling, tower vibes like. And so there's this constant, walking away feeling, this constant cutting something away. And I think the truth is very much something that forces us to cut things away that we would otherwise maybe prefer to remain comfortable in, but also wouldn't be living our true selves.
And I love that because also, when you approach a tarot reading and somebody comes to you for a spiritual inquiry, a lot of times they need something actionable or they need some reassurance that if they are to make a hard decision, one that they probably don't want to make, that it is at least a growing quality to it. Not every separation will ever feel okay. Not every bad memory is going to get resolved. But with that knowledge, you may be able to either avoid it in the future, or your intuition will have grown because you'll be able to spot signs, or you'll be able to talk better to yourself and have a better dialogue with other people. So that makes a lot of sense with, especially with the dream aspect of it. It's like, even though this is the most heightened of the suits, because nobody wants to be in anguish and anxiety at all, but it is the truth at the end of it. That's why the Ace of Swords is it's the very first one, and it's triumphant, and that's why all of the rest of them go into demise.
Right, it's all downhill from here.
I learned the truth, and now it's all over,
and everything has fallen apart. Damn you, mind. Absolutely. And I have so much love for the sword court cards, and the Queen of Swords in my deck is absolutely one of my favorites. Although I will say I love the king too, because I really worked in like a King Arthur vibe of like, I am enlightened and then I have access to this and I can guide you to it. But I love the queen because there are tears and like there are clouds and there is lightning, but there's also this butterfly, this transformation, this understanding that I have undergone something so deep, so pervasive, something that some sort of surgery. I've gone through some sort of excision where something has had to be cut out in order to get to the truth and in order to be real and to be in integrity. And so I walk this path kind of, knowing that it comes at a cost, but it's a cost that in the end I feel is worthwhile.
I have had somebody say that they feel that the Queen of Swords is grief, and that totally makes sense with the tears. It's also grief because you had to set a boundary. Anytime the Queen of Swords comes up in like an emotional reading, it always comes out as like you had to put your foot down or you had to, it's not even I guess drawing a line in the sand, but it's more like, listen, this is as far as I'm going to take this, or this is as far as we're going to do this in a way that's painful to me. I can't do this anymore. And it is pain. It does make you want to cry because you have to stand up for something that maybe you don't want to, or with somebody that is, since all the queens have water underneath them, so they are all in relationship. And so this is usually with somebody you're in a relationship with, and how hard is it to tell somebody that you love that they've gone too far, or now you have to
Absolutely.
put a wall up.
Yeah, the core cards are about stepping into responsibility for others. We are taking on this role. We are not just alone anymore in the minors. We are of a certain, like echelon at this point. And I think of the Queen of Swords being someone who maybe makes sacrifices in the now in order to have peace kind of down the line, or who has had to have those hard knocks kind of interactions in order to know where the boundaries need to be drawn. And that comes with some isolation if we've let people walk all over us, which we do when we don't listen to the swords because they're trying to tell us that something is wrong. And so absolutely, it is a journey of grief. It's a journey of recognizing what we've had to lose in order to transcend to this point. And so there's, I think, a necessity to accept. And, our journey with that queen kind of depends on where we are in that process. Can we live in the truth that we have lost and still feel like we are on top, whatever that means to us, and still feel like we have power? It's sort of like this hard-earned power, right? This like hard-earned respect that always comes with the memory of when we didn't have it.
I totally get that. So we went over the pentacles. We talked about how you wanted to convey that it's more than just money. It's the body. It's feeling in connection with nature. It's feeling in connection with, it's so interesting you bring up the body, because that is a very translatable way of looking at it, because money a lot of times affords us to care about our body. If you have I won't even call it privilege, because I think everybody should have enough money no matter what to be able to do that. So that to me is not a privilege, that's a right. But unfortunately, it's not a right that's exercised.
Right.
But if you did have, I think we said right, like I said right 3 times. But if you did have, enough money to take that time with yourself, then you can indulge in certain ways that bring out the quality of being alive, right? Mm-hmm. Our 5 physical senses are the quality of being alive. The feeling of touch, what we hear, what we're tasting, that is, this is a little off topic, but with mediums that I've talked to about, passing on, one of the biggest things that, souls who were recently human miss are the 5 physical senses, because that's not available anywhere else, So we can, right? Like we can trash, Earth all we want, but like, that's why we're here, is so that we can enjoy a scenic view, so that we can, walk along the beach and see a beautiful sunset, so that we can hear these gorgeous sounds and eat this amazing food and hug our loved ones. Apparently, like, that's one of the first things they want to do when they talk to a medium. They wish they could touch their loved one. So I think it's so important to look at the pentacles like the body, because when we're spiritual, we kind of want to, discard it. And I just don't think that that's what we're here for. I think we are here to be just as much with the everyday present life of nature as we are with our own everyday minds. As a matter of fact, I think it needs to be a much better balance between the two. And that will help break up that identity issue, is I'm all the way in my mind, as opposed to I am my mind and I'm also my body.
I love that. And, I want to say that I'm cackling inside because I did recently have the privilege of listening to someone's experience with a medium who discussed really missing food and really missing like food and sex, like just meeting those. Yeah.
Yes.
But what you just, yes. I think it's the Taurus in me. And it makes sense. That's where my Mars is. So my Mars is the one, creating. It's the Taurus in me that is really interested in kind of like a simpler life and just kind of understanding what, Capricorn and capitalism have really instilled in us. Again, this like climb the ladder, get the money, have a mansion, buy another mansion. Like, how many cars do you have? And like, we've all been very blinded and misguided by this American dream lifestyle at various points in our lives. And maybe still unlearning it now, because it is cyclical and we are still programmed, and those programs are reinforced by commercials and society that we still live in. And so
social media is a big one that reinforces it right now, is social media.
Right, absolutely. And so the idea of, while you were talking, I was thinking about how much I love my Nine of Pentacles. And it's just this figure who is on a hillside looking out at their like little modest house. Like, it ain't no mansion, like it's just like we ain't in the city. It's not a penthouse. Okay, this is like my little hillside house. And I've got my basket of like flowers, and I can see flowers in the horizon. And I just feel really nice and calm about like this steady life that I live, and this nice, slow progress that I've made towards the responsibility that I feel good about taking in my environment, and the way I tend to the land that I live on, whatever that relationship looks like, and like what it's able to offer me in return. And I think that is something that I really aspire to when I think about wanting wealth for myself, which I'm still working on deciding is okay to want. As I like have this giant smile.
And as you're talking about the Nine of Pentacles, I love
talking about the Nine of Pentacles. I like, it's okay to want stability. It's okay to want something that feels consistent, that feels nurturing, that feels providing, but also to not want those things that we're told we're supposed to want, and to decide what abundance looks like for you, and to decide what it feels like for you, to recognize that it's a feeling that happens within you and not just the stuff that you have, but what we have access to being different or being broader than necessarily like what I can buy with my money, but what kind of positive relationships have I made with nature where like we've got each other's back, or like what other forms of currency do I possess that are not strictly financial? What are resources I have access to that are not just the number in my bank account? And the more I think about what those resources are, and the more I engage in connecting with those resources for myself, for my own pleasure, as well as for the pleasure of those around me, the more my intrinsic self-value increases outside of the number in my bank account. And so I just, I think I've grown up with a very conflicted relationship to money, and very conflated views and very conflicting views and very problematic views on what is valuable. And so it's been really important to establish that relationship to resource that are not material necessarily or commercially material. There we go. I have a first house Venus in Capricorn, so it's very I am a lady of luxury, absolutely my dude. Like I love give me like the velvet, give me that top shelf, give me that like, I want all don't hold back, like give me all of it. And so um needing to understand where more of that exists, where I have not looked at it for it previously. So
I love that. Okay, I'm going to take a sharp turn because
absolutely.
I want to talk to you about constructing spreads. Because that's one of your favorite things to do. And it's one of the harder things for tarot readers to do, because I think a lot of times tarot readers feel a bit trapped. If I make my own spread, then what's that? Is that real? Is that something that I can really rely upon? So what can you tell me about your process of creating spreads for yourself?
I love this. Yes, you are correct that creating spreads is one of my joys. And it is something that I've had the distinct pleasure of getting to kind of test on you frequently. So thank you. And
So much fun.
I love creating spreads. And I think, I am on a recent kick of like turning my problems into curiosity, right? Which is, of course, like a psychological technique of like, okay, let's reframe this. And so I think, many of us maybe been at a point of how many different ways can I pull these cards? How many different ways can I ask this question? I am not really, for whatever reason, I'm unclear about what I'm getting, or like I don't like what I'm seeing. And so like, let me just pull like so many different things. And I think I reached a place of frustration of like, I don't even know what I'm asking anymore. Like, I don't even know, like, what are we doing here? Like, you could pull 12 times the same question. And like, what did you just do? Like, did you help yourself? Did you give yourself any information? Like, what just happened? Do you feel better now?
Things so hard. It's like it's like all you can kind of do is like say, I don't like that answer, and then re-pull everything. And it's like, and then most of the positions are, a little static, like past, present, future. And it's like, okay, but if you were to pull, you can't pull that again. Like you can't, there's nothing like if that's a statement, that's the statement. So
That's it.
creating your own spreads opens it up and probably allows you to communicate a little bit more emotionally than just the futuristic gypsy, not that they're gypsies, but like the gypsy fortune telling.
Yeah, the stereotype
that we get
totally
trapped into. Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was certainly that person who was like, okay, I pulled this, I'm okay, I'm just dizzy now. And so like what, that being one issue and a challenge that I kind of wanted to overcome in a creative way. But on top of that, just beginning to have questions, especially, this actually, yes, I've thought the thing. I think I'm like, my Pisces stellium is like, cast the line, and then like, we're gonna like,
I love it. We're channeling. This is called channeling, people.
Exactly. And we've caught something. Okay, great. Let's go with it. Okay, great.
Reel it in.
Reel it in. Absolutely. So I believe my curiosity in forming spreads came about as I started working with astrology on a more regular basis. And I started to have questions about transits, for example. I would think like, oh, this Venus retrograde is coming. Like, what does that mean here? And, my little Pisces mind is like, give me 12 different expressions of the same thing so that I can just have all the layers. So like, it's not enough to just know what Venus in Cancer is going to bring up. I want to also pull cards to think about like what sort of like visual themes I can come up with here. And so that became a fun, distinct challenge of like language blending, basically. How do I translate what's happening in a transit into questions I can ask the tarot? And started off, biting off a little more than we can chew. And, it's kind of starting off with some big questions that, what this transit means. Like, what? That's not a question. So it was an experiment of kind of needing to hone in on what exactly I was trying to ask of the astrology, I think. And so doing that, I think, helped me really build up a comfort level with creating my own questions, because I was able to follow a loose rubric of astrology language as I was learning it. Okay, Venus doing this. While it's there, it's going to aspect this planet. So there's a question. But what will this conversation look like?
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I hope to see you at the next one. And as always, as above, so below, blessed be.